Hi everybody, welcome to another Chats with Children. It's a miserable day here in Surrey today, but my day hopefully will get brightened up with my guest this morning, who is Angel Gil from LabTwin. And today we are going to be talking about a voice-powered digital lab assistants. So, Angel, how are you and where are you calling in from today?
I'm doing great. I'm calling in from sunny Berlin. We're actually in the middle of a heat wave. It's 36 degrees, which is I think the hottest temperature we've had all year. Um, so yeah,
I'm
I'm
very
sending you some sun rays.
Yeah, well, we need it. I mean, I'm very jealous because it has been a heat wave here in the UK until last night when we had thunderstorms, and now those are going to be here for the next few days, I understand. So never mind. Anyway, the day's bright up. I'm talking to you, so that's all good. So before we start talking about voice-powered digital lab assistants and what they are, perhaps you could tell people a little bit about LabTwin and your own background.
Sure. So my name is Angel Gil Nolskog. I'm part of the commercial team here at LabTwin. Before joining LabTwin, I was a researcher myself. So I have a background in cancer biology, and I was working in a translational group investigating novel therapies for cancer, primarily CAR T cell therapy, which is one of these personalized treatment options that are gaining traction.
Sure. Very popular.
Yeah. Then about LabTwin, which I guess is the interesting bit, it was founded in 2018. And it's a joint venture between the Boston Consulting Group, Digital Ventures, and Sartorius, which is a German biopharma supplier. As I said, most of us are based in Berlin. We're a little over 50 people now. Startup mentality, so very multinational, multi-talented, lots of different backgrounds. And yeah, we set forward on this adventure to develop LabTwin, which is a voice-powered digital lab assistant, like you said, which is revolutionizing the way research is being conducted in labs.
Perfect. Well, let's talk about how it's revolutionizing research then. So my first question, very basic question. What do you mean by voice-powered digital lab assistants? So what does that actually mean? And what do you mean when you talk about that?
Yeah. So it's actually a mobile app that you deploy on a phone or a tablet. You pair it to a headset. You can put the phone away in your coat pocket, your lab coat, and you're good to go. You can walk around the lab and by means of voice interact with this assistant, which takes away the tasks that you don't really like to do, whether that be documenting notes on paper, setting timers. So this is all things that just by speaking to your assistant, it can do it for you. So it makes your work a bit easier, and you can actually focus on what you like, which is the science.
Right. Okay. So how does that differ than to say something like, without going into too much into brand names, Alexa or Seri or something like that? What, why would someone be looking to use this in a lab rather than saying, well, actually, why can't we just use Alexa or Seri or something like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there are several things that differentiate our tech from the more common voice providers. One being the language model that we cater for, right? So it's we understand more technical and scientific vocabulary. Also, the way we capture data is structured within a data architecture which greatly resembles that of labs, whether that be within experimental folders in which you can have your templates, your protocols, and everything then yeah, has also the information security standards that are necessary to be able to capture these IP sensitive data that you're capturing. So it's quite different in many ways.
Right. Okay. Well, let's go back a step then. Say, how did this technology develop in the first place?
Yeah. So it started off with lots of research, to be fair. So what we did at the beginning was look to see where there was some friction points in early R&D that were ubiquitous across the industry. And before deciding on voice, we actually looked into many different kinds of ways to approach and solve these problems. But ultimately, we decided to move forward with this voice-powered solution because, in essence, many of these problems that researchers encounter in their day-to-day have to do with having to interrupt their processes, right, and write something down. having to deglove. So we wanted to provide them with a very natural way of carrying out these tasks by means of voice.
Right. Okay. And you mentioned that you looked at the friction points. So what were the main friction points that you saw when you started doing your research in terms of what researchers face in the lab?
Yeah, I guess the most important one, and the one that sprouted everything, is the gap that exists between experimentation and documentation. It's asynchronous when it really shouldn't be. There's a lot of time spent documenting your work, and this is oftentimes done maybe 4 or 5 days after you've actually conducted your experiment, for example. And that delay of time comes with, could lead to data being lost, mistranscribed, misinterpreted. So we wanted to provide, bridge this gap and allow them to do so in a more contemporaneous fashion. That was kind of the main problem. And then there's a lot of other things that came with it that we also address.
Right, well, let's talk about this. So how does it help researchers then?
Yeah, so I mean, the easiest part is what I just mentioned. Documenting, forget about paper. No need to bring in any kind of printed protocols into the lab anymore. Everything can just be done. It can be accessed digitally and recorded also digitally and contemporaneously as you're conducting your work. The benefits of having digital records from the get-go is, of course, the context is there, right? It's time-stamped, it's audit trailed. So in terms of data quality, you hit the mark that is necessary when it comes to also the integrity of the data. We've also then designed, I mean, the other main problem that is common in labs is data being siloed, right? I mean, you have maybe a database with, I don't know, a molecular weight that you might need at that exact moment in time when you're pipetting something into a well. And it's not accessible, right? So another thing that we help with, and we designed the system to be very open, to be able to integrate and remove these silos, increase the connectivity between other hardware and software components, as well as the data repositories that are already existing in lab.
Right, okay. And so do you have a demo then you can show us how it works?
I can show something quickly. I'm gonna have to connect again. But if you give me a second.
Yeah, cool. Well, that's the beauty of doing an interview live, you know, these things happen. While you're doing that, I mean, what's the situation? You mentioned security a little bit earlier. So how secure is it using something like this? Because obviously using any voice activated technology, there's always a concern about big brothers watching you and, you know, access. But also, obviously, if you're looking at life science and pharma in general, regulatory is, you know, and security is such a huge issue. So how secure is the software when you're using something like LabTwin?
Yeah, that's a very good point. And it's something that, I mean, being a German company, GDPR and data protection is, we take it very seriously. In terms of meeting industry standards, which I think is quite important, and more so, like you said, when you're dealing with IP sensitive data. So LabTwin is ISO certified, ISO 27001 and 17. And these two certifications accredit our compliance with international standards of information security, and also the second certification for being a cloud provider. Right. So we take security quite serious. And then when it comes to background listening, which I guess is always also a topic, we have wake words which trigger your application or your assistant to listen to you, like you'll soon see in this very brief showcase that I'll do. And that, of course, takes away from you having the fear of LabTwin listening into the chat that you're having with your colleague as you're working under the lamp hood, which I'm sure, yeah, sometimes you wouldn't want it to be picked up.
Sure.
So I'm all set. I'll maybe briefly share my screen.
Sure.
I'm guessing you can see.
I can, yep.
All right. So I'm basically just sharing my phone, which is in my hand. This is the LabTwin. Okay. This is the LabTwin mobile app. And what I'll be doing is just for example, I'm going to walk into the lab, starting an experiment. I'm going to scan a sample that I'm going to be working with to just log in the material that I'm going to be working with today, and then record a voice note. It's going to be very brief, but just to show you how the tech works. Hey, LabTwin, scan. I have a little scan here. You can scan it. You can see I scan my sample. It's a HeLa cell line with a MIC knockout, the passage number. Then I can record a quick voice note. Hey, LabTwin. Hey, LabTwin. Starting a proliferation assay with C11BD for 27 hours. So this, instead of being a note that you would write down on paper, you can just quickly record a voice note, which is logged within this experimental folder, and it's timestamped. We have some labeling functionality, which extract these metadata tags to your note. You can also access some kind of reference file. So I can pull up a table, for example. Hey, LabTwin, open table drug dilutions.
Opening drug dilutions.
And then you can reference this file instead of bringing it in. You already have it within your experimental folder. This table feature can actually also guide you through a tabular input by means of reading the column headers and also guide the way you capture data to already have a structure that can be analyzed later on in an easy way.
Cool. That's a nice little demo. So off the back of that, though, a couple of questions come to mind. One is, how about accents? Because obviously researchers are global. There's lots of different nationalities. I mean, obviously English is the sort of common language for science. Everyone is using English, but regardless of what we say, everyone has their own unique accent. So how does LabTwin accommodate for different accents?
Mm-hmm.
That's one question. And the second question would be that, obviously if you're doing repetitive tasks, does it sort of, machine learn, what you'll do on a regular basis so that you don't have to keep saying the same thing again and again? It's already got that process built into it, in terms of protocols or whatever it may be.
Yeah. So to the first bit regarding accents, our language model is built on a base of natural language processing. So an NLP model, which is, we use several different providers depending on the accuracy that is provided by our internal tests. And this accounts for a great degree of flexibility when it comes to accents. On top of that, then we've built our proprietary model, which understands, this inhibitor that I was using earlier, right? And the technicalities of the language that you're using in the lab. So that goes to accents. In terms of the second question with repetitive work, we do have a protocol feature within LabTwin. So for more repetitive tasks, you can, for example, pull up this protocol and then just record notes which are intercalated between the protocol steps that you're following. There's also the possibility, for example, if this is a routine assay that you do quite often and perhaps you don't need LabTwin to guide you through each individual step of your protocol, but you need a very concrete like a volume of a certain step that you have to add. We also have a way of viewing these files, right? We have a file viewer in which you can upload the PDF of your protocol and just query it by a voice. So you can ask, how much volume of sodium hydroxide do I have to add for the precipitation step? And LabTwin will answer with this specific step. And this avoids, of course, having to go through and listen to a protocol that perhaps you know by heart.
Fine. Okay, excellent. So thanks for the demo. So my other question to you would be then that how easily can the technology be integrated with the different instruments and protocols that researchers use in the lab? Because there are so many different instruments, so many different providers. Everyone does their own software as well to come with the instrument. So how easy is it to integrate this with that?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's the $1 million question that everyone always asks. So we do have a REST-based API published on Swagger.
Sorry, can I ask you, what is Swagger?
I'm not a tech guy, so I won't be able to give you a very
So is it just a platform that people use to actually integrate software?
It's actually a documentation. So it's where you can actually view the code of the actual programming interface
Right,
that,
okay.
that you use to connect, to integrate to. It's a URL, so I can actually share that with you. And then you can access it and see the endpoints that are available from
All
our
right.
platform to integrate.
Right.
So you basically build on that, right? Depending on what you're integrating to, you can extend these endpoints to find a common ground, whether it be to an ELN or to a LIMS system, for example. That would be what you, what I would basically share with a partner that is perhaps interested in seeing how they can voice enable something.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, that's how we like to proceed. So some typical integrations, like I just mentioned, ELNs are quite common to streamline the whole documentation journey from contemporaneous capture to pushing the data. LIMS systems as well. So you saw earlier in the demo how I scanned a sample. This QR code already contained the sample information, but imagine this would be pulling the sample data from, for example, the LIMS system that you might have in place. So yeah, that's kind of how we approach this, and we like to think of the maximum functionality of our application is actually reached when it's fully integrated and when it's an integral part of the environment that's already quite complex, right?
Right. Okay. Cool. And in terms of workflows and so on, how easy is it to use? And so we touched on a little bit in terms of protocols a bit earlier, but how easy is it to use with different workflows?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's quite adaptable. So we do have within our application a web browser, and that is where a lot of the prep work is done. So not so much execution where you would use the mobile companion app that I showed in the demo, but we have a web platform where there you can actually build your SOPs and build your table templates that then you'll access at the lab when you're carrying out your experiment. And that can be adapted to any kind of work that you're doing in the lab. And we do give the end user, so the researchers, the autonomy to be able to customize and build these SOPs themselves. Of course, most labs already have protocol repositories, right, with a lot of existing, maybe, I don't know, thousands of them already in place and approved. So another option that we do carry out is integrating to these databases, right, and being able to pull these protocols into our system. And like I mentioned, with the more routine kind of work, you would just view the protocol instead of having it read out to you by your assistant. And that's another way we can approach at least the workflow aspect of LabTwin.
Fine, great. So my final question, which is the $64 billion question, is how do you see the technology developing and being used in the future?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I guess our vision is to be the hub of data collection in the lab, right? I mean, we're not just thinking of primary data coming from the researcher, such as the voice note that I captured, but also thinking a bit broader, right? Considering also the instruments that are involved, other data sources, and deploying, like I said, a fully integrated solution where we can really maximize the value that's provided to the researchers. And I guess data accessibility is also a key component. So not just capturing the data and making sure it's done so meeting high data integrity and quality standards, but also giving this accessibility to the researcher to be able then to make more data-driven decisions when they're at the bench. And this is a main concern for, I think, most labs, just how everything is very siloed and disconnected. And by providing kind of an interface, a voice interface, which is very natural in the end to people, right, speaking, it would really facilitate this. And that's the kind of the vision that we have. To be able to, whatever you want to know or access, there would be a query that you can just ask LabTwin. It'll find the data source of where this is and provide it to you.
Right. Okay. Fantastic. Well, thank you for taking time to go through that. So where can people get more information, Angel?
Well, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's a great way. Or check our website. You can book a demo, see more of what I showed you earlier.
Great. And are you at any virtual events? There's so many smart lab related events running at the moment. So are you attending any?
There are, yeah. And I think Monday we have Future Labs coming up, and we'll definitely be there.
Fantastic. Well, I'll put the link for Future Labs above here, as well as a link to the website, and obviously your details will be on there as well. So, Angel, thank you very much for taking time out to talk me through that. It's a really interesting subject. So I appreciate taking the time out, and I hope the sun continues to shine where you are in Berlin. And for the Euros, Viva España. All right, for you. So there you go. And so thank you very much. And viewers, I hope you found that interesting as well. If you've got any questions for Angel, then please leave them in the comment box below, or you can message him directly on LinkedIn. Or if you're at Future Labs, and actually it's a free to attend event, and I'll put the link above, as I said, you can meet the team at Future Lab next week as well. So all that's what we say is thank you once again, Angel. Enjoy the rest of the day. It was great speaking to you, and thank you all for watching. It's lovely to see you again. I hope you all stay safe and well, and I hope the sun is shining where you are. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.